Hey, Trojan family, what's going on? Welcome back to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB Network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Hope everyone is doing well out there. I've teased this or talked about it and did some research, wanted to get on here and give my kind of full 2027 recruiting roster breakdown. So how many players USC will target at each position? What players are they currently targeting and are the favorites? And what will be the finality of the entire class? Now, this is all my projection, my opinion. Obviously, I've had conversations about there, obviously been tracking a lot of this. I'm not just making up out of thin air, but this is just kind of my feeling as to where things are. This is not like coming from the front office saying this is exactly what we're doing, so don't take this as the Bible. But I think it's a good idea of what USC is looking to construct with the 27 class. So obviously give me your feedback, give me your thoughts. A lot of these guys, a lot of these positions we've talked about in singularity over the past kind of month or so. But now I wanted to kind of put it all into one, kind of as a blueprint or some architecture, if you will, of what this class could be. So let's start with offense. And I'm just going to go position by position, and then we'll just talk finality at the end here. Running back position. I think USC will take one running back. They took just two but they took two in 26, in the 26 class, Deshaun Rideau, Sean Alston. They are fired up about those guys. Obviously this year, Wayman Jordan and King Miller returning as your kind of two slotted starters. Wayman Jordan, both could be gone after this year. King Miller is a redshirt sophomore, so this is his third collegiate season. So both Wayman Jordan and King Miller could move on after this season, but that still leaves you with the promising young freshman in Rideau and Alston. Plus, they return redshirt freshman. He will be this year, Riley Wormley, returning as well. So it's a loaded room. So I only see them taking one in this class. There's typically only one running back on the field. Sometimes Lincoln Riley has run some two running back sets, which has been really fun in terms of the offensive growth. But only one guy can carry the ball. So it's hard to just stack too many at that position. Obviously, offensively, only one guy no matter what gets the ball, but you get my drift here. So the guys I'm looking at right now, Noah Roberts, 5th ranked running back in the class out of Arizona, 6'1", 190. USC had a lot of momentum for Roberts early. That has waned a bit, whether that's USC's side or Roberts' side. I don't know 100%, but it seems like that momentum has definitely cooled off. We'll see if it ramps back up. He had been kind of heavily started to trend towards Oregon. Oregon just gained a commitment from another 4-star running back. Again, USC took 2 4-stars last year, so not saying they won't take 2, but we'll see if that shifts Roberts' thinking at all and maybe pushing back to someone like a USC that may only take one running back at that position. Another running back, I should say, Caden Way, the number 8 running back in the class, 5'11", 190. Again, kind of up and down recruiting. We'll see where Anthony Jones continues on this one and if they can kind of sway him back. I wouldn't say they're the leader by any means, but someone to look for. And finally, I talked about him last week, Jeremiah Adeyanju, 6', 210 out of Arizona. Underrated prospect. So, this is not a 4-star guy. Rivals doesn't even have this as a 3-star guy, but he had really good production last year. He's got great size, like I just mentioned, 6', 210. And he visited USC for Junior Day and loved his visit. And it feels like if USC wants him, he probably will commit to USC. So we'll see what USC does. But after what they spent at that position probably last year, this is one of those, hey, high upside guy, doesn't need to come in and start, doesn't need to really even play for 2 or 3 seasons based on the room we got. So if we believe in the ceiling this guy has and we can get him in the door with a lot cheaper NIL, and he can just come and develop and be in that room, you can understand that line of reasoning. So receiver, I'm going to be quick on this one because we've talked about it. Like I've said, 3 receivers. That's where I see it. I see 4 max, but I'm going to call my shot with 3. Eli Woodard, already committed. Quentin Hales announcing his commitment on Friday. I've said I believe it will ultimately be USC that gets the commitment, which would be great. The number 1 receiver in the state of California, number 7 overall. Extremely productive and great with the ball in his hands, like we've seen with the likes of Mekhi Lemon. That puts you at 2. The other 2 I'm really looking for, and there'll be many others out there, Eric McFarland out of IMG Academy and Osani Gales at IMG Academy. Those are my top 2 to get that one final spot. I think McFarland would fit beautifully for what they want to do on offense, but Osani Gales very talented as well. There's plenty of other receivers they're targeting and pursuing, but those would be my top 2 to look for that final spot. You'd have a pretty elite receiving group with 3 there. Tight end. Earlier, if you watched my video, I just talked about the latest offer they sent out, and they made the top 6 immediately for this young man. But I see USC taking 1 tight end, and the 3 I'm looking at are Rosario Edwards, the 4th-ranked tight end up in Northern California, 6'6", 206. Mason Oglesby, I talked about him earlier today, out of the state of Indiana, the 21st-ranked tight end, 6'4", 230, elite size for a tight end. And I talked about him last week, Charles Davis. Do we know if USC thinks he's a receiver or a tight end? That's that flexibility. We'll see if they slot him and maybe they take 4 wide receivers, but they have a guy like Davis who they maybe consider receiver, but also can play tight end, kind of that, Deuce Robinson ilk, if you were. You remember a couple years ago, he was the number 1 tight end in the class committed to USC. USC basically played him kind of as a receiver, really. I'm not basically, they did. That could be like a Charles Davis, 6'5", 200 pounds out of California. Said USC is his dream school. So if USC wants to keep pursuing that they could probably make that happen depending where they slot him at. Offensive line, I got it at 4 between interior and offensive tackles. And I think it'll be heavier on the interior for this. The 5 names I'm looking at. Jackson, and I've talked about all these guys already, so nothing new here. Jackson Roper, the 14th ranked interior offensive lineman, 6'4", 290 out of Colorado. Lincoln, of course, my handwriting gets messed here. Lincoln Maggio, the number 23 ranked interior offensive lineman, 6'3", 280 out of Oceanside, California. Lucas Roa goes to Orange Lutheran, number 37th ranked interior offensive lineman, 6'5", 280. Reese Russell, just talked about him as well with Roper last week, also out of the state of California, or Colorado, the 50th ranked interior guy, 6'3", 260. And then this is the interesting one. Cassie Curie, he's the 3rd ranked defensive lineman in the class, 6'4", 313, out of the state of California, and highly touted prospect. USC has primarily recruited him as an offensive lineman. However, that being said, if you remember, a couple weeks ago, coaches went on their visits. Now, this is back when Doug Belk and Henny were both still here on the staff, but they went on their little recruiting visits. At the time, it was reported that Henny and Nua were visiting Cassie Curie. So, I think Zach Hansen has been the lead recruiter, and they view him as an offensive lineman. However, maybe they're still kind of weighing that option of like, hey, if you really want to play defensive line, we still do want you here. And once you get to campus, we can kind of see where things settle. I still kind of see him as an offensive lineman. Maybe that's just because that's how USC has perceived him for the most part. But when you're the 3rd ranked player at your position, which is defensive line, obviously that's for a reason. So I have him in this list kind of as an offensive lineman, but it will be interesting to see where USC truly sees him, and especially now that Spencer Jones is your defensive tackle coach, if he has a different vision for him, or if Zach Hansen will continue to be the lead on the offensive side for that, because he right now has an RPM from rivals to commit to USC, and you would assume that is as an offensive lineman, considering Hansen, who's been kind of the lead, but that will be something we will keep you posted on. So there's your offense. No quarterback. I'll get to that in a second. Let's go to defense now. I've said all along 4-ish defensive linemen. I'm going to go with 3. Call my shot with 3 total defensive linemen. That includes the edge position. So whether it's 2 tackles, 1 edge, 2 edges, 1 tackle. They have one already committed. Isaiah Vandermeer. I've talked a ton about him, so I don't need to bore you anymore. But I think he's elite. I think he's going to get his 4-star pretty easily and have another great season at Santa Margarita. So he's committed. The next ones to look for. Marcus Fakatow would be the prize possession, at least on the defensive front for sure. Right now, heavily flavored to Notre Dame, but USC recently really ramped up their recruitment of him and certainly elevated in his eyes where they sit. So Marcus Fakatau is a reality. I'll say they're in the game finally. John Ioane out of Tustin, like his prospects. I've talked about him a bunch. I think he could look really nicely at USC. Jeremiah Williams, his teammate at Tustin. So Ioane is more of a kind of a 3-tech-ish, can play inside. Jeremiah Williams will be your 0-tech. I mean, obviously, if you add a 4.25, you're probably not playing a true 0-tech, but size-wise, Williams is much bigger. But I think they're going after both prospects. And then also another name to look for on defensive line, Ali Falatelli Tui Halamaka. He is the 35th ranked defensive lineman, 6'3", 265 out of the state of California. Another top tier prospect on the defensive line. Great, someone great relationship with Coach Nua that they can continue to kind of nurture that and see about that. And lastly, talked about him last year, just offered, and USC, he said, shot to the top of his list, and that's Kaleo Va'atoa. Great defensive lineman from the Northern California area. So, and lastly, from the true edge position, Zyron Forstall. He's the number 2 edge in the entire class. He's out of the state of Louisiana. His will be interesting. USC had a lot of momentum early that has shifted to Texas A&M and others. You would think, even though he was edge, Coach Henne, with his ties to Louisiana, probably played a big part in that early recruitment. So now that Henne is gone, we'll see how that has shifted. But I think USC will still pursue. I mean, he's an elite edge player that they could potentially go after. And especially if they only go after one edge, why not go after the best one or the second best one in the entire class? Now, they also, Fakatau is a guy I think that can play edge. He's listed as a DL, but they can kind of line him up anywhere. So it just kind of depends how they want to truly allocate NIL funds and roster construction. And if they view Fakatau as a guy, hey, let's go push all of our chips in, we can play him all across the defensive line. We get Fakatau, Vandermeid, and one of these Tustin kids. We'd be thrilled with that class. So it'll be fun to see how that shapes out, but I see 3 defensive linemen. What's up, Trojan family? Got to tell you about a quick update from our friends over at Sleeper. Remember, they're the #1 sports app and absolutely fantastic for fantasy and daily fantasy, but they've just added a fantastic new features and they've launched team picks. So now you can choose winners of each game out there, whether it's NBA, MLB. I know football's over. It's coming back soon. Don't worry. NHL, all those. And you just pick the team winner of each of those games. So here in Los Angeles, Lakers, whoever they're playing next. Do you pick the Lakers? Do you pick their opponent? Dodgers season just around the corner. Are you picking the Dodgers or are you picking their opponent? It's that easy. It's that simple. And it's that much fun. So aside from fantasy, aside from the daily fantasy pick 'em, now you can do the team picks that they just launched. So download the Sleeper app today, #1 sports app. Go and check it out and have a ton of fun. And make sure to keep it right here at USC LAFB. Linebacker, 1 linebacker. You know, they got guys coming back, still young in that room. So really going to be losing no one when you look at, technically you're going to have Desmond Stevens and Jaden Walker. As long as they don't transfer, they'll be, juniors essentially. I think Walker will be a redshirt sophomore. But they'll be going to their 3rd collegiate year. Talanoa Ely going into his, and Elijah Newby, same age as them. And then Talanoa Ely going into his sophomore year, 2nd season. So you got 4 backers there as long as no one transfers. Plus if you bring anyone in. So numbers wise, going after 1. Caden Henderson, he's the number 2 ranked linebacker in the class. Another guy that there was some early momentum for. Rob Ryan involved in recruiting. Now that it's kind of shifted to Mike Eckler's room, it'll be interesting to see if these offers ramp up, if they cool off, if he pursues the same guys they were originally, or he kind of shifts focus altogether. So we'll have to reevaluate this linebacker room once Eckler's really kind of taken charge. But this is what we know early on. So Caden Henderson obviously is number 2. I don't think USC's in the lead, but they're in the running. Toa Satelli, a guy that number 4 linebacker. Really think USC was in a really good spot. I still think they are, but again, we'll see if there's any shift now that Mike Eckler's taken over. Cal and Oregon, very much involved. I think Cal may be the leader. I think there's a big connection with Tosh Lupoy, their new head coach. But USC certainly in the running for sure. It'll just kind of depend on what happens now with Mike Eckler taking over that room. And Isaiah Phelps, I've talked about him before, the 32nd ranked linebacker in the class. Some of you might not get excited about that, but unbelievable production. He's from the state of California, goes to Pacifica out in Oxnard, which is a really underrated football school, and production off the charts. Had something like 200 tackles last year. Like, insane, just a nose for the football. So Isaiah Phelps, it seems like he's kind of starting to favor towards like Arizona State, but USC will certainly be in that one.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most highly sought-after products on the market. It visibly shrinks under eye bags and smooths out crow's feet in minutes, and the effects last up to 10 hours. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. In as little as 10 minutes, Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results. The best news, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95. Plus, get free shipping. Don't wait. Order Plexiderm today. Visit plexiderm.com/special. That's plexiderm.com/special. Paid for by Sheer Science.
And finally, defensive backs. I have it at 5. So you look at, and we've talked about this room a ton, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but Aaron Washington, already committed. Danny Lang, trending heavily for USC. Honor Fa'alave Johnson, trending heavily for USC, the number one safety in the entire class. And Gavin Williams, trending for USC. So that's 4 right there. Duve Williams, USC seems to be cooling on him a bit, whether it's size reasons or whatnot, but he seems to be trending more towards Cal and other schools, but USC is still in it. But it seems like USC is more the one like, we may be looking at others. But then you have the 2 Long Beach Poly kids, the 2 Long Beach Poly defensive backs that USC is starting to kind of ramp up a little bit more. Juju Johnson, Dante Wright, what they look at those, if they can flip Wright from Georgia and kind of get back on the radar of Johnson. You look at the St. John Bosco kid, Jalen Hill, kind of ramping him up a little bit. So I think ultimately they end up with 5. Wouldn't be shocked if it's just 4. The 4 main ones are the ones I listed at the top. Those are like the dream scenario. If they get all 4 of those, they may say, cool, we're good, shut it down. But they might add 1 more, or if they miss on one of those, add kind of 2, if you will, to replace it. So there you have it. That puts the class at 18. We've said 15 to 20. I split the difference. 18 total commits for 2027 is the vision that I kind of see for it. What say you? How do you see it? As you noticed, no quarterback. I've talked about that before, so I have a video on it. I won't belabor the point, but if you haven't seen or haven't heard it, I just think in this NIL era, in this transfer portal era, 27, you don't need to take a quarterback. Doesn't mean they won't. I wouldn't be shocked if they add a 19th player as a quarterback, or, only 4 DBs and 1 quarterback. I know we've talked about Dane Weber, who they just haven't offered yet, but he's visiting USC from Chaparral, teammates with Eli Woodard, could be a great fit for USC. But that quarterback, the 27 quarterback, has to know. Like, it has to know going in. You will not start. Unless it's going to be an open competition. Like, you'll have the opportunity to compete, but you likely will not start for 2 to 3 seasons. Yeah, unless things implode with Jonas Williams, the plan would be for him to start next year as a redshirt freshman, and then him to play 2 seasons. And if things go great and he's ready for the draft after his 3rd collegiate season, 2nd starting, then that 27 can take over. But that's sitting at least 2 years, potentially 3 if he comes back again. So I would wait. I just think, why spend the money on someone to sit for 2 years? And for those saying like, well, the room's going to, you're losing Jaden Maava, you're losing Sam Heward, you can go get a backup in the portal. So have Jonas Williams, go get a backup or two, but a quality backup and maybe a priority walk-on, and I think you'd be just fine. But they may still add a QB in the 27. We'll see. I think allocation-wise, it makes more sense to wait and then go all in on 28. If you figure for a top-tier quarterback in today's day and age, you're paying close to $1 million. Why not use that $1 million for Fakatow in 27 and then go spend 1.5 in 28 for one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the class? But anyway, let me know your thoughts. There it is. Ton of names I threw at you. I probably fumbled over some of them. I apologize. But 18 total commits is what I see for the 27 class, sitting at 3 right now, potentially 4 on Friday after Quentin Hale announces, and then that would leave them 14 spots for the rest of the recruiting cycle. So let's see how it goes. So hit that like and subscribe, and as always, family, fight on.
Bettering your business takes working with the best. With the James Hardie Alliance, you gain access to leads, training, networking, and support from the #1 brand of siding in North America. Achieve new levels of success by joining the James Hardie Alliance today.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.